Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv. Wolok. My partner in crime, Vasili, Gianarakos, cannot be here today. He is on vacation this week, so good for him, and let him enjoy that time. He'll be back for next week's episode. Today we have my boy, Chris Maher, back for another episode. Welcome back from Chris Maher Media. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, dude? Thanks for having me on, man. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fun. Good talk hockey and shoot the shit, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, there's nobody, outside of Vasili at this point, that I sit around and bullshit about hockey with more than you. So I figured,
there you go.
While we're in the dead here of summer, as we approach the end of August, or really September starts getting a little bit exciting.
Yeah,
I figured you'd be the perfect person for this.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, it's again, like we've talked about this before. This season's going to be fun.
Yep.
I think we're both kind of on the same page of where the team can kind of be, and we'll obviously talk about that, but it'll be fun. I mean, look, it's going to be a fun year. There's a lot to be excited for. Obviously, the summer has gone pretty well, from the overhaul and management to the draft and development camp and everything else. So it's been fun, and hopefully we can kind of see some of this stuff kind of start to get going here, and maybe see some things get answered in the rebuild.
Yeah, man. There is some fun here to talk about. We'll talk about that today. So before we get rolling into this, let me just give a shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks on 4th and South. They're still not open, but when they are open again, we will announce it here. Make sure to keep them in your mind and your hearts, and get a cheesesteak when they reopen.
They got great cheesesteaks.
Yes, they do.
Gotta say.
They really do.
I don't mean to go off topic, but
the smell goes down the block when they're open.
Yeah.
Like, they're open. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I want a cheesesteak. I'm actually, for most people who don't know this, I do these really long fasts. I am on I'm close to 40 hours right now without any food. I've done this quite a bit. And what I typically do, and people probably think I'm a little bit crazy for doing this, but I'll do a 2.5 day fast. Then I eat one meal, and then I roll into another 24 hours, and I roll into another 24-hour fast. And I'll do that throughout like 5 days, and slowly get off. If you guys want a fat burning tool, you will not find a better one than an extended fast and then slowly getting off of it. If the hours I said are way too intimidating, which I totally understand, can start off with a 35-hour fast, then into 12 hours and 12 hours. And everybody's heard about it, intermittent fasting. This stuff works so effectively. I recommend it to people. So I'm a little bit crazy right now, and cheesesteaks sound incredible.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny because the last time I think I saw you had a cheesesteak, we were at the Flyers game, and you were scooping the meat out of the roll to not eat the bread. And then you ate two of them like that. And I was like, What is this guy doing? I'm like, it's crazy. Man, good for you, man. That's great.
You know me, dude. I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I'm crazy with the fitness and the diet. I ran 5 miles today. It's actually the first time in a little bit, but 6 days a week in the gym. I love it, man. And
good,
honestly,
man.
And we've talked about this. It's a great way to understand what athletes go through. I do not train like an athlete. I am not an athlete. I am a very average athlete, but I am very into fitness, and just to understand, what it really takes to add 10 pounds of muscle and what that really is, especially on a guy who's like 5'10", right? Like, that's a lot, 10 pounds of muscle on a guy who's 6'4" is not the same, right? Start learning all these things. You start learning the way that they can actually get stronger, and you can look at body types and see who can maybe leverage their body type more. So all that comes from training. So I would recommend, if people want to understand hockey, if you play hockey and you do not train, you're missing out. That's the one thing killed me. I played hockey and soccer. I did not work out at all. I couldn't do one pull-up in high school at all. Today I do sets of 12, right? Couldn't do anything. So I wasn't like Mr. Athletic. I played sports, but like learning how to train your body, it's like, it will change your life.
Yeah.
I've told you this, Chris, like a million times.
Yeah.
So anyway, check out a cheesesteak and get fat.
Yeah, there you go.
Eat the meat. It's still amazing.
Yeah. Just scoop it out with a plastic spoon.
Yeah. Also want to remind people to please subscribe to this channel, hit the bell for notifications on when episodes come out. Go check out iTunes and Spotify and leave us a rating there. We're also available on all audio platforms in general, but all of that helps immensely. So thank you all so much. The numbers have definitely gone up. We noticed it's the off season. We cannot wait to ramp up for the regular season. All right. Let's get into our first topic. Chris, this is somebody we've talked about quite a bit over the time. Oddly, a controversial player in Philadelphia. It's such a weird, controversial player. But Morgan Frost still has no contract. I anticipated this could go long, but again, my stance, and people have heard the last episodes, they probably heard my stance on this. He does not have much leverage. He is an RFA. He can't do too much. The Flyers are not competing for a playoff spot, at least not immediately. They're probably like a wait and see mode. So they're not rushing. They don't feel like they have to get him in the lineup to fight for a position in the regular season, at least not too much, right? So they're not pressured too much, and they have all the leverage. So I think what we're watching is Frost is playing his card, which really is only to wait it out and get really to the end of time allotted. Most negotiations go to the finish line, and I'll tell you guys a little bit something I maybe have mentioned it on here before. There's something called Parkinson's Law. It's a project management theory, I guess, but it's a law. And the concept is that humans will always use the full time allotted to them. Even if they have extra time, they will typically use all of it. So if you think about this negotiation process, if they have time, right, and time is aplenty, the rush to get a deal done is not there. I think as we approach camp, something should ease up. But Chris, I know you have somewhat of an opinion here on Frost's position, but again, I don't think he has much leverage, but I would imagine he is trying to get something like what Noah Cates got.
Right. And so it's funny because I had tweeted on July 29th. I knew a couple people that were close to the situation, and I put it out that they didn't really make much progress. I haven't heard an update since. I don't think they have. We'll see. Obviously, he's not signed, as you mentioned, so I really don't know about that. Frost for me is you're weird. It's interesting, and I think you're right because like you mentioned that him kind of being a controversial type of guy, and I never understood it. I feel like there's like a split in between the fan base of people that like are really on him and really enjoy watching him play and see what he can do. And then there's just like, to me, it's always felt like there's like a weird split with Frost that the other side is kind of just like, they don't see it. They're not a fan of him. He's too small. You know what I mean? Like all those little kind of nitpicky things. Frost for me I think he's a good player. I think he has skill. He's one of the better prospects I think I've ever seen in a Flyers uniform as hands and skill and everything else. Obviously, that would probably change with Gauthier and Michkov, and hopefully,
somebody else.
That this is, with the way that this goes and the 2 first-round picks we have, we'll see, right? But I mean, the skill and the creativity he has, it's incredible. And I thought there were some good moments last year with Frost. I mean, obviously, wasn't the best start of the season. Gets compared to a toilet seat. He gets scratched in Toronto. It kind of just went all. Yeah, I mean, it just went all. It's like everything that could have went wrong with him at the beginning, and it was like, dude, like what is going on here? And I didn't think he was playing horrible, but I mean, I was looking at it the other day. He played on 38 different line combinations in one season, and only
exploratory year.
Yeah, and still put up 46 points.
I think he was playing on the bottom line at one point.
Yeah,
was he playing on the fourth line?
Just take a guess on how many were with Delorier, McEwen, Brown, Sedlak.
How many of the games?
Yeah, a lot.
All the early games that he struggled in.
It was a lot. It was very early on, and it was a lot of them. And he only played 30 games with Van Riemsdyk and Tippett, and then played 30 games with Farabee and 17 games with Farabee and Tippett.
The injury to Konechny, I feel like, ignited his ability to be used more.
Yeah.
The injuries that compiled throughout the year, he had no choice but to get an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And he played well. He put up points. He scored. He had a couple game winners. He looked good defensively. And for some reason, Torts still, I don't understand why. It's just like, I don't know what I see with him. And I'm like, Think to myself, you're on the ice. What are you watching? I can see it on my television.
Well, in fairness, when he said that, he did. It was in the beginning when he said, "I don't see it."
Right.
But when as the season got on, he did acknowledge he
yeah.
wanted more
Right.
from him, but he did acknowledge progress. He didn't.
Mhm.
He said Frost played well at times. He even stopped. I remember one press conference. He like stopped himself. He was like
Does
like
any
kind
part
of
of you
criticizing.
actually think? Sorry.
No,
Does
go
any
ahead.
part of you actually think that that's going to carry over into this year? Because I don't. I think if they're healthy, he's just going to go right back down, and
To
it's going to
the bottom
be
of the lineup
to at least third line. Because if Couturier is healthy, he's not playing first line what he was, and you already know he
I
loves
don't
Cates,
think he's going to play the
so
first line. Yes.
no. But Cates is going to be your second line center.
We'll
So Frost is
we'll talk about lines because I want to bring that up at the end.
right.
But I don't think I think everybody's going to start off in a clean slate, and I give Frost the same grace that I give Tippett and Cates and York. Is I expect him to have a really good offseason and be better than when he
I
came
hope so.
in
Yeah.
last year.
The only thing
And-
Cates has to do differently this year is just put up a little more points. If he can score more, great.
Well, think about it. What does Frost really need to do? Be just a little bit more engaged, a little bit more consistent, and a little bit better on defense. And he wasn't even bad on defense past year.
No.
That's a 25% increase. You know, if you want to put a number around it from his productivity prior, that is absolutely doable in an offseason.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do I think Torts is still going to be critical of him? Yes. I think he's going to be very critical
of everybody.
Of everyone out loud, probably outside of Scott Lawton, probably Couturier.
I mean, he sat every defenseman outside of Provorov.
Yes.
Last year.
They all deserved
Sealer and Risto.
Every one of them outside of Sealer deserved it.
Yeah. I mean,
Sealer, strictly depth.
I don't remember when Risto was, but it might have been when Risto was. I think Risto was bad in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it was then.
So,
because
that's why it's hard for me to argue, because I look at what Torts was saying, that when he was criticizing Frost, he wasn't playing well. And was he still harsh on him? Yes. And I understand why people worry about that, but it worked, didn't it? It kind of worked.
It worked.
Maybe I'm wrong.
But I don't even know if it grants a better opportunity for him.
Why not though? You can't assume he has no favor with him. It's not like as the season went on, he used him less. As people got healthy, he continued to use him heavily.
But because they were injured. If they weren't injured, he's still playing in the bottom part of the line-up.
I mean,
you can't really.
Kevin Hayes is gone.
Right, but I'm saying if we're healthy, right, and
who would play above him in the lineup?
For us, I think Cates would.
Towards his mind. Yeah, but we're talking about the top nine.
Oh, in the top nine?
The top nine's all about equal outside of Coots and TK.
Well, I think the thing is the question is he a center or a winger next year? Because to me, I think he's a center.
No, I think he's going to be playing.
I think you got to play him as a center.
All right, well, let's table this. We'll talk about the full lineup in a little bit. So, but it's an interesting point. What position does he walk in?
Yeah.
To this season with Torts, I would imagine. I would, if I'm Torts, from what I see with Torts, he really does try to do like reset, come in, come in, show it to me on the ice, show me you're a hard worker. If I had any problems with your personality, show me that, it's changed, or show me that you're trending in the right direction. And I think Frost has. So I would imagine that he's bought grace from him. Maybe not as much as Tippett, because I would say Tippett was maybe more consistently giving towards what he specifically wanted, which we have to be aware of that, right? We don't know the conversations they're having in the background, regardless of how they're playing. We know that Tippett was giving him what he wanted. We know Cates was always giving him what he wanted and then some, right? So I would just say that if he just has a marginal increase, he shouldn't have any problem playing a large position for this role. But I'll tell you, I don't have him in the top 6 to start the season, based off of towards his attitude towards him. But I have him on a scoring line. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's a big difference between the second and the third line.
No, and honestly, I think our offense is fine. Our defense got worse, really worse. And we don't know who our starting goaltender is, and that's a problem.
Perfect.
Because
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a lot of question marks. And look, I think camp is going to be very similar. We're going to have a lot of guys, probably a couple PTOs. it wouldn't shock me if the first day or two there isn't a single puck on the ice. Like it's going to be the same thing again,
Yeah,
and
hell yeah.
and I'm fine with that. It's just I think for me, um, I'd like to see more of the guys that at least I thought that had good ends of the year last year at least kind of start off with that. But it's a whole different ball game and it's a whole different team roster, everything else, and you got to go through training camp too. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is on paper the way where I look at them is defensively because they've gotten worse. I think my biggest concern with the D, and I think you'd agree with this, is there's no huge minute logger anymore. There is no Provorov that can log almost 30 minutes a night. You don't have that anymore. And I don't know how that's going to affect us because we've had that for the past 6, 7 years. So,
Yeah.
that's where I'm a little concerned. But
Absolutely. And we've seen that conversation go on all offseason. It's actually a perfect transition to the next topic, and that is Cam York. And you do mention Provorov, and I agree with that statement without a doubt. I'm a big fan of Provorov. I didn't want to trade him. I understand why he was traded, right? He wanted to leave town. Anybody who wants to leave town, you got to move. It's going to be a problem. You don't want it. You don't want people in your organization who don't want to be there. Like over time, it's just going to be a problem.
Especially when you're trying to, I didn't make
build
off,
a culture.
But, right. Yeah.
I would say in any case, dude, even if you're one of the best teams in the league and he's a huge part of your team, goodbye before it gets worse, because it's going to get worse.
Right.
Majority of the time, I guess is 90% of the time it's going to get worse. I guess there's some cases where it gets better depending on the problem. But, I don't have a problem with that. Now, Cam York's been talked about a lot. Now, he was drafted relatively high. He was arguably the second best defenseman in the pre-rankings prior to the draft. Obviously, there's some good defensemen taken there. But I think Cam York is right on track to be a future top pairing complementary defenseman. I don't see him to be a true number one, but a guy that a team can rely on. I really think he's already showing signs of that at an early age. And I think people are putting a ceiling really quickly on him being, he's a number 3. And it's like, he is a 21-year-old defenseman. You don't know what he is. You can try to project it, but right now he's already done a good job playing the top 4 at a young age. He has a higher offensive upside than Provorov to some degree, at least with the ability to make a pass. Like his passing ability is the best on the team.
He's our best passing defenseman. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the best we've had since I get maybe Shane Goss is there, right? So he's a really great passer. He's creative. He's smaller, but he's not too small. He plays big. Like if he can end up being essentially what Kimo Timonen was, which, like people want to rewrite history. I keep hearing it. I hear it on podcasts. People calling Niskanen not just a top pairing defenseman, but a number 1 defenseman. Ryan Ellis is a number 1. Neither one of them are number 1 defenseman. Just so everybody's aware. Not Ryan Ellis.
They're number 2.
Ryan Ellis never was even in a position to be a number 1 defenseman. He was always stationed behind better D-man. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he was always behind
D-man. I call him.
My whole point is like people are just retrospectively going, he immediately came in here who's better than Provorov, which wasn't true. Even when they were playing, they both played at a high level, not just one of them. So people are assuming that obviously Ellis wouldn't benefit from Provorov. No, absolutely not. Niskanen wouldn't benefit from Provorov. Absolutely not. He carried Provorov. None of that is true. You put talented defensemen together. There are exceptions to the rule where you can find guys like Victor Hedman, right? Zdeno Chara in his prime. There are less of these guys around the league than there are teams. No. Most teams don't have a number 1 defenseman. So you have to compensate by having 4 really good defensemen. And if you have 2 number 2s, which is what most teams have, you're doing well. So I think that's what we really need to focus on here. If we get lucky and find number 1, great. But building Cam York and admitting that he does have a pretty good ceiling to at least be a top pairing defenseman in the league. Right. Not that different from Ryan Ellis, actually. Doesn't play the same, but similar type of ceiling. That's a highly effective player that you can build a defense around.
Right. No, I agree. And I think, I think the biggest thing is, Torts challenged him, obviously. Like he, gets sad in the beginning. He goes down. Lehigh comes up. He talks about him, kind of wants him to rove a little bit more. And he did that. And he was good. York was really good. Not just, offensively, I mean, obviously he had some good moments and he didn't put up too many points, but I'd like to see more points. He's definitely going to be able to put
Power
up more
play, power
because of
play
the power
problems.
play.
Yeah, power play
Um,
problems though.
if the
And
power
power
play
play
gets
still
better
stinks.
and
Or
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And that's the biggest question for me, I
he
think,
had
offensively for us is
20 points in 54 games just to add in a -1.
yeah, and that's not bad. And really a -1 on a team that could barely score 2 goals a game isn't great. Is pretty good.
Where did he
Um,
put him at?
I think for us, the biggest thing is like for me, I think my first pair to start the year is
Point,
York and Ristolainen.
0.37 points per game for a 21-year-old defenseman on a team that can't score on the power play. That's actually not that bad.
Yeah,
If he was at 0.5, he would have been talked about all over the
right.
NHL.
And how many times did we either give up the first goal, or how many times we're trailing after 2 periods, or how many times, all of the disgusting stats that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
That all, kind of factors into it, and especially the power play. But no, I mean, I think my first pair to start the year is York and Risto. I do think Stahl's going to play a little higher than people expect. I don't know where Sanheim kind of fits in. I don't know if they try him on the right side. I don't really know what they're going to do there. Um, I think the one thing for me with York is, and you obviously touched on a little bit, was the passing. Like his outlet pass is great. He gets out of the zone pretty quick. I think the one thing that I really saw a difference in him last year, at least as the games was really good at that in college, but it really was improved, I thought, last year. But overall, I think for York, it's just trying to figure out how many minutes he can kind of log, because I think they're going to try to get him to play a lot. I don't know if they'll try him on the right side. I know he's not a huge fan of it. I don't know what the Flyers want to do there. Personally, I would keep him at the left. But the one thing I will have to disagree with though is I do think he can be a number one.
I mean,
He's
the
young
potential
enough,
is there.
right? He has the skills. It's not like he can't. Um, I just look at York and again, I think it's kind of similar to my argument with Peterson. It's like people are kind of throwing like, you know what I mean? Like they're already kind of putting this ceiling type thing on a guy like that. And I know
Yeah.
it's different because he's a goalie and he's older and,
But
all
he
that
is
type of stuff.
27. He is 27. He's not like an
Right.
old man.
Right. And, and that doesn't mean that certain guys can't play better later on and all that type of stuff. But
And
then again, at
goalies
the same
develop
time,
late.
right, exactly. And I know I'm kind of going a little off topic, but for Yorick, it's like, I look at him as the type of guy that he's going to be able to put up some points. Our power play hasn't really had an effective shooter since Gostisbehere, because I didn't really think Provorov was great at it. There were some moments where I was like, okay, but for a lot of the time, it felt like Provorov was just shooting into that first winger that was coming at him, and like he just couldn't get the puck through. York, I think it's a little different because the way that he's able to kind of just like sift it through, I think he's better at that. So we'll see. I mean, look, we've talked about the power play before. I'm sure we'll talk about it. It has the talent to be better, at least not be 32nd, and that's 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not good. I mean, it's the one reason why we don't score a lot. And I feel like there were a lot of games last year, it felt like, where we got a lot of power play opportunities and still didn't score. Because I think we do a pretty good job of drawing penalties and at least being able to get calls. It's just we're not capitalizing, and a lot of those games can go the other way. But yeah, I mean, I think for York, I think he's at that age where it's like he can kind of, take the bull by the horns a little bit now and just kind of ease into it. And I think he's going to have, the right guy to do it. I don't know if they'll try him with Walker because we don't really know what Walker is yet. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
I'm sure preseason they'll go with a million different type of, combinations and deep pairs and all that type of stuff. So we'll see. But I mean, I do think there's some good things about York. like the bad stuff. Honestly, I think it's nothing like too crazy. It's just really being more consistent. I think,
Getting a little
like
stronger
these,
too, which is
yeah,
just a
like that
natural
would help.
progress of getting older and
Right.
weightlifting, and that's a big thing he has to do in this off season. Is just to get
Exactly.
stronger.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that's the thing. I think that's a lot of our guys, honestly.
Yeah, because they're
Um,
young.
right. And that's the thing. Like we're going to be needing that in these next couple of years.
We saw
But
with Tippett this past
mm,
year, he definitely looks stronger and stronger on the puck, and look at what a
yeah,
difference it made.
yeah. And the only thing that I'll say about York is just don't get hurt because
Yeah,
we don't need any more injuries, and it's not going to help. So
totally agree. Let's transition to the next defenseman. There's a little bit of updates, and this is kind of related, and then we'll go through full lines at the end. But
mhm,
Emil Andre was a potential camp flyer, and I would say maybe that decision would have been rushed a little bit, potentially rushed. We'll see how he does at camp. But Emil Andre has officially now the Flyers have stated that officially he will be staying here regardless of if he makes the Flyers or not, which is really good news. I imagine the conversation went something like, look, he might not make the team right out of camp, but we see him in the NHL next year. Like, we're going to be calling him up. So there's, like to punish him for not making the team right in that beginning window when realistically he will probably be in the NHL next year at,
right.
at several points, if not for the whole, for maybe the second half of the season. It's like, I think they allowed him to make his own decision here. And I'm really happy to see it. And I didn't want to rush Emil Andre because we'll look at the lines after this. And putting him in there is a little bit rushing it just because you don't need to and you have the bodies right now. Having said that, if he's ready at camp, I mean, everybody's really excited about him. Brent Flair already says he's NHL ready. So again, if Torts validates that, we might have a very different conversation. It might not matter anyway, but I still think this is a really nice update where, it's like we got this and we got the Jay O'Brien second, like I feel like right back to back. And, it's like almost like a change of fate. Like I feel like in the past
Yeah.
under Fletcher,
Plus,
we'd
we
have
won
like
the
lost
Rizzo
it.
trade too.
Yeah, we got the Rizzo trade too.
Mhm.
That's true.
Yeah. No. Look for Andre. I look at it like it's a win-win for us because again, I am fine with not letting him NHL. Like I do think there are guys later in the year that could make their debut. Like example, guys like Gauthier. I think at some point he's probably going to make his debut, depending on how BC does in
Yeah.
playoffs, because I know their team is stacked. But you also have to put out there that we're probably going to be hurt again
Yeah.
because it's just been happening these past
Without a
couple of
doubt.
years, and
It just
and injuries always happen
it
too.
does happen. Let's just
Yeah.
be honest. You can't
So
look at your starting lineup for the beginning of the year and be like, this will be the team the entire
right.
year.
I mean,
It's
it
never
would
the
be
case.
nice to have that starting lineup for maybe over 5 games, but still, it still just it really does aggravate the shit out of me that we still have never seen this team with G and Coots and Hayes and Ellis and everybody all completely healthy and Broussard and Yandel. That entire roster from
Well,
21
that's
22.
gone. Yeah, I
I
was about to
know
say.
it still bothers me, but anyway, I digress. On Andre, I think the biggest thing is that you know he looked good with the Phantoms. It wasn't like he just came in and kind of just played. Like he had good moments. He had some good hits. I saw him live once or twice. He looked good, man. I mean, even in the playoffs, I mean, I know they kind of went down in and I hate how the AHL does it, the 3 games all on the road type series. It's so stupid, but that's a different conversation. Anyway, Andre, I think he's that type of guy that he's smaller. He really likes to throw the body. I have no problem with us waiting for him because, like you said, we have a lot of different guys kind of competing in that, especially on the left side D. We have a lot of that. We don't have many right side guys.
Right. We
And
didn't even talk about Ronnie Attard, right? Who's also
right.
going to be in the mix.
hmm and that's the
And
thing.
maybe Grons too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, regardless of where Andre plays, he's going to have an impact. Because again, the Phantoms are probably going to be pretty good this year, and it also kind of goes into the sense of like, where we're going to be finishing towards the end of the year, and if we're hurt, some guys might be getting called up. Probably similar to what the Phantoms were doing at the end of the year with us, was just like Forrester comes up and then goes down so that they can play in the playoffs type thing. It's probably going to keep happening, because I think the Phantoms are going to be pretty good this year. And
They
I think
definitely
the
have goal
biggest
scorers
thing,
this year. They have a lot
yeah,
of
they're gonna
scores,
mhm,
especially if Forrester doesn't start the season with the Flyers, which
right.
we'll get into that.
That's probably highly unlikely. But anyway,
Yeah.
I just look at Andre as that type of guy where like, Dev Camp he looked good in Dev Camp. He's very ballsy. Again, he likes to throw that big hit and he can really move a puck, man. Like he's got some really good passing ability. So,
It's not
it'll
that
be
different from
interesting.
York, dude.
No,
He's
it's
really not
not.
that different from
Yeah,
York
it's the
as a
Swedish
player.
game versus the American game. And
He's a
I think
good
the biggest
skater,
thing for him
slightly
is just
undersized, two way.
right. And the biggest thing for him is really just translating his game from Sweden to North America. That's going to be the biggest challenge, I think,
Which,
for him.
yeah, and I think there is a transition, but I will say I find that the European, like the Finnish and the Swedes, because they're so strong at D, the way that they train, I just feel like they have less of a problem where like, and again, I'm stereotyping here a little bit, but a lot of Russian elite players that come over, they tend to be more one dimensional a lot of times. Not all of them, obviously. There's guys like Orlov and Provorov, right?
Mhm.
It's not like clear cut, and then obviously Datsuk was definitely not one dimensional, right?
I
But
love
like
Pavel Datsuk.
you just think about a guy like Ovechkin. You think about Zherdev. You think about like just these Russian players who come over.
Kovalchuk.
Yeah, like to adapt their game, they have to score. Like with Andre, I think in his case, even if he doesn't score, if he can just play really good D as a young
Yeah.
guy in the NHL, that would be really awesome to see.
I know everybody
Where
says
the
Timonen.
offense will come.
Yeah. And I know everybody says Timonen. I think he can be Timonen, just be more physical. You know
Team,
what I mean? Like,
I agree with Team. We just it's possible.
yeah.
I love that. I see the ceiling. I just don't want to put that on because Timonen was
Right,
like
right. And that's the thing.
exceptionally smart.
Yeah.
He was just so smart.
Mhm. No, and that's the thing. Like, I don't like putting that stuff on guys either because I think it's stupid. Because it doesn't help. And, like, again, he's the type of guy where he might need a little bit of time to kind of get into it a little bit. Like, the one thing that I always thought that everybody kind of missed with Robert Hagg was how physical he was. And they were like, oh, Hagg wasn't physical. I'm like, Hagg could
He
literally
was.
put guys out of games with
Yes.
hits. How
That's why
physical he was.
that
And
was
Andre
his
can
only
do the same
benefit.
thing. Yes. And Andre can do the same thing. He's just better. I'm not saying he's Hagg. I'm just saying he's just
smaller.
about as right. He's smaller, but he can still
Much
hit
smaller.
guys.
Yeah, that's the thing. His game, like Steve Corniano said this on the podcast a couple years ago when we were talking about Andre, and even pre the draft, he was talking to me about him. If he was Gronz's size or even 6'1", there's no way the Flyers would have had this guy available. His skill level, the way he plays, the fact he was captain of his team, he is not the type of guy that ever on the ice played at a second round. But again, that's what second round picks. That's why I love second round pick defensemen is that they have something that fell short. And if you can fix that or they can get over it themselves, in his case, his size, then they can be humongous home runs. Duncan Keith being one of those second round picks. Malcolm Subban, I think, was the second round, or
PK Subban.
PK Subban. Jesus, Malcolm. PK Subban was the second round pick. There was Shane Gosper, a third round pick. He was drafted much smaller, much thinner than what he ended up coming into the NHL as, right? And as a third round pick, Shane Gosper is a home run. You can say what you want about him. That's a third round pick of a guy who,
still plays in the league today.
Yeah, and also puts up, not a point per game, but pretty high for a defenseman. So you just, if Andre can put up, if he can put up points at the NHL level and he can also play defense, his size won't be an issue. That's the only reason he dropped. I'm kind of hoping that he starts in the AHL for his sake because I love when players get red hot and come to the NHL. But if there are injuries, I can see it. But the fact that they can safely put him in the minors, they wouldn't have been talking about that with the Swedish team. What was it, Modo? I'm forgetting right now. Anyway,
HV71, I think.
HV71, thank you. They wouldn't have been talking to them about it if they didn't see him as a guy starting off in the AHL, just looking at their roster, looking at their cap space, and looking at the allotted space available. And we'll go through the lines here at the end, and we'll see that.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, I think for him, it's like, he's that type of guy where he's probably going to need a little bit more grooming, and that's fine because our window is perfect essentially for everyone right now.
Right, because we don't need to rush him. There's no rush.
Right. There's no rush. Right. And we have first round picks. Danny's added in areas where we can still get picks. We signed even guys in the offseason that can help us get picks later on, guys like Hathaway, stuff like that. So, like, all of this stuff is kind of helping us right now. And, Danny's making the easier type of moves, even though I don't think any type of move in the NHL is easy. But still, it's helping us later on. And we have that window where, if certain guys that don't work out, maybe guys like Ginning, guys like Zamula, you still have other guys kind of in that back
In
part,
that
and
mix.
guys like Andre, who can still kind of play. And I remember a couple of months ago you sent me the depth chart, and I'm like, this really isn't that bad. Like, when you actually break it down, it's really not that bad.
Oh, you mean when you get behind past all the
Yeah.
media freaking out and talking about 5-year game plans and all this stuff?
Yes, all that stupid shit.
Yes.
Us
all
saying
this presumptuous nonsense.
Yes, we're not going to pull a Buffalo or an Arizona and just suck for like 10 years.
Look,
it's not going to happen.
It is possible, but you make mistakes along the way that lead to that, or you have unfortunate bounces.
And you have to be incredibly idiotic.
Yeah, or
that too.
Like again, with Arizona, how can a team rebuild and be competitive when they don't have a stadium? No. What free agent is coming there? What player wants to stay there?
Well,
Mitch
it's surprising because a lot of
want to talk to them.
Free agents went there. Dumbo went there. Jason Zucker went there.
People love. Look, I'm an adult. Arizona is a great place to live. That's why they want to keep it there. Players like Arizona. It's a great place to be.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's a market that can be successful,
and the NHL doesn't want to leave it because they see how successful it is.
Right, and again, I don't think the NHL players want to leave Arizona because they like Arizona.
Yeah,
I have friends that want to move there from Philly to Arizona. Like, it's for some people, it's exactly what they're looking for. So, like, I don't think it's beyond saving, but again, like I said, there are reasons that their problems have continued.
Yeah.
Look at a team like Ottawa, okay? What about their rebuild? They didn't crash. They did have to remove a bunch of pieces. They've slowly been building up. Claude Giroux was available. Alex DeBrincat, right? They had to move DeBrincat. They took a risk, right? But you see, they're slowly building. They have a really great defenseman, right? And then they add another one in Chikrin, right? And then they have a bunch of young defensemen, and they just are throwing shit at the wall, and they're gradually getting better. That's
Ottawa's
really
biggest issue is in net at the moment. But
so I guess we should trade Carter Hart immediately then.
There you go. Solves the answer to everything.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end.
I should say they do have Korpisalo, and I don't think he's horrible, but he's not. No. He's much better than what they had last year when Talbot.
But again, don't you expect, like, Buffalo? I expect to be better next year. Ottawa, I expect it. Like, I think
the Red Wings are going to be better than both.
They're all doing it incrementally. That's my point. None of them are changing their franchise around overnight. It's
I feel like we've had this
process,
conversation,
and it can be
though.
fast or slow.
Yeah, and I feel like we've had this conversation about,
like, the Rangers were fast,
right? And like we've had, I feel like doesn't it feel like we've had the same conversation about those three teams the past like 3 years? Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, where they're going to be
because they have problems, right?
And they've been doing it for the past multiple years, and.
Well, look at Buffalo. They had a problem, like, players wanting to stay there for whatever reason. And it seems like they've gotten past that. Now they've built a better culture. Their young stars are staying. Players are turning their team around. And that's why Tortorella was so important for this team, which people don't like. If you can establish a solid culture, a hard work culture, it will attract players. Like, people saw Garrett Hathaway wanted to come here. Why? Mark Stahl wanted to come here. Why? Okay, but they're not obviously looking to win a cup. So they're willing to come to the culture here and do that. So when we're even a little bit competitive and our culture is in order, then all of a sudden we'll be able to afford a Johnny Gaudreau, right? Which I think, again, I'm not a guy I would build my franchise around, but I would look for a free agent of that caliber to bring in, right? If that happened, if the Flyers start progressing in the right way, and all these buyouts are off the book except for 1 year of Kevin Hayes, right? And all of a sudden there's a big free agent on this team, and you've added Cutter Gauthier, you've added Michkov.
What if we get Matthews?
Whatever, maybe. I don't know. I would say Matthews not going to leave Toronto, but if he does, we'll definitely be in the hunt, and we'll have the money.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, if you look at any of these next couple of years and guys that are free agents or big names, it's like,
and the cap is going to go up.
There's so many guys. Yes.
So
and we've already been, if we can get rid of the Ellis deal, it helps us a lot.
Yes. And
even
there
other
will be a
guys.
team when that happens who tries to hit the cap floor, right? Because
Right.
cap floor will go up too.
Right.
And that means all the contracts that we have are long term, even like Travis Sanheim, if we have to move him,
Even like Atkinson,
they become a lot more
where's
viable.
the line in?
Atkinson will be done here by the time the cap goes up, I think.
He's got what, 3 years left?
No, two.
Two? Okay.
Got this year and
Yeah.
next.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Because
Him and
Voracek,
CK have that.
yeah, and Voracek would have had this would have been Voracek's last contract year, but he retired
Right.
early because of the head injuries.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
Sucks.
All right, let's get into the next topic. Next topic is Oliver Bonk. This is actually kind of big news. Oliver Bonk gets signed right away. Again, taken pretty high in the draft, but he gets a 3-year entry-level deal, making $950,000 a year. Obviously, he will be playing in juniors this year, but I think it's a great sign. Again, typically first-round picks do get signed. But it tells me that there is potential that at the end of this year, if his team does not make it far, which maybe they will because they're London Knights and they're typically good.
Yeah.
But if they don't make it far, he might be playing for the Phantoms at the end of this year. And the way he looked at Dev Camp, and I imagine the way they view him is, I'm not saying that he wouldn't spend time in juniors. I'm not saying they take it off the table. But if he progresses properly, I could definitely see the Flyers interested in bringing him over early, getting play a year for the Phantoms, and then hopefully getting him on the Flyers by the time he's like 20, 21 years old, get him a little bit of NHL time. If they view him that way, I look at this contract and it tells me that it looks like they do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the thing. Like, I think this year it'll be strictly OHL, but I'm not ruling out what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, he'd
have to be done.
And
he'd have to be done with his season, the OHL.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, the past couple of years, London's been pretty good, it seems like. So that too. But yeah, no, Bonk, he looks good, man. I mean, he's still a little raw, like from Dev Camp. Like there were some things that I thought he did really good at. The skating, he definitely can shoot. Like biggest thing is for me is he just looks like he's just not kind of put together. He's not all together right now. You know what I mean? Like he still needs a little more kind of
he definitely needs time.
Yes, exactly. And we have no need to rush him. You know what I mean? I think us just signing him now is just like, we can get this type of deal done. Let's do it type of thing. They obviously have high interest in him, like we've talked about, and everybody's been pretty high on him. I talked about,
and he's playing with Barkey too, right? Which is also good.
Yeah, unfortunately, we couldn't see Barkey at Dev Camp because he got hurt, but he's the one guy next year that I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes on because I think he's got some skill too.
Potential first-round pick.
Yeah, and for Bonk, it's like he's the type of guy. He's got some good size. He reminds me of Myers a little bit, not in a bad way. I don't want to say that for anybody to be like, oh my god, holy shit, he's like Phil Myers. That's not what I'm saying because Phil Myers isn't really in the NHL anymore. What I'm saying is he's not. It doesn't seem like he's really all there. And it's definitely going to take some time with grooming and stuff. I think the biggest thing for me is the skating. He looks pretty good at it. I think there's obviously room for work there and stuff like that. But he can quarterback a power play. He can shoot. There's a lot of good things that I think he does, and I have no problem with us taking a right-hand D. Danny addressed it. I said that from the beginning at the draft. So if we could have got a right-hand defenseman, I would have been fine with that. And
we definitely needed one.
Yeah, and exactly. And they even added, a bunch more kind of later down the line. We ended up getting 3 throughout this entire draft. So not too bad overall. And, Bonk, he definitely has some upside. So it'll be interesting. I like that they were able to at least get him signed and kind of, get that out of the way. Seemed like everything went well at Dev Camp too to kind of make that a little bit easier. And, it'll be interesting. So we'll see.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, I agree with definitely most of what you said there. So just to bring in perspective, I just thought this would be really interesting to look at a defenseman who had a similar roadmap but ended up being a humongous success. I brought him up earlier, Duncan Keith. If you look at Duncan Keith's career, he was drafted 54th overall in the second round by the Chicago Blackhawks. He was playing in his draft year for Michigan State University with, pretty decent numbers, 9 points in 15 games. So not, nothing out of this world. Then he played 1 year for the Kel Lowen. Oh my God, I am having a brain fart. Kelowna. Oh my God, thank you. Kelowna. That was such a brain fart. Kelowna Rockets. For
I'm gonna
in
have to
30,
clip that.
yeah, in the WHL, nah, never. In the WHL, in 37 games, he had 11 goals and 35 assists. Which is 46 points in 37 games.
Yeah.
And then he went to play in the AHL the next year for 2 seasons. He had 25 points in 75 games, then 26 points in 79 games. And then his NHL career, similar statistics in his first 2 years. And then points just kept going up every year once he started hitting the age of like 23, 24, till, he hit peak with 61 points. And if you just look at Oliver Bonk, he has 2 seasons. First season in the OHL, he only played 10 games, 3 assists. In those 10 games, he was a +6. His last year's draft year, he had 10 goals, 30 assists, 40 points in 67 games. So not a point per game player. But again, this type of guy who is similar size to Keith. Again, I just bring up a right-handed defenseman from back in the day. You don't look at Duncan Keith's previous career and go, oh my God, it was like out of this world numbers, Only his post-draft year did he have above point per game scoring pace. So all I'm saying is if Oliver Bonk shows some kind of high scoring pace, I'm not saying he's going to be an NHL superstar or all-star from that. But if he has a higher offensive ceiling this year, I think it will exceed expectations, because he didn't put up any points in the second half of the year or any goals in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
So he needs to show that he is a legit offensive defenseman. If he is, I'm not saying the Flyers will rush him, but the conversation around bringing him into the AHL, I think, will increase. If his offensive numbers are about the same, I think they'll give him more time to cook. But if he hits that point per game pace this year, I think they will try to bring him over to play in the AHL, not the NHL,
Right.
and give him a couple of years down there to develop his game.
Mm-hmm. They'll probably do something similar like they've done with Adard. They'll try to make him that number one type of guy and see where it goes.
I mean, Cam York, right?
Yeah. It's interesting with Keith. He's one of the only D to win a Norris, a Conn Smythe, a Cup, a Norris, a Cup, and an Olympic gold medal in the same year, 2010, when they beat us. He's won 2 Norrises, a Conn Smythe. He won the Conn Smythe in 14-15 when they won. Scored the Cup winning goal as well.
He was my favorite NHL defenseman, not on the Flyers at the time.
Yeah,
I love Keith.
I really liked Keith too. He's, I don't know what it is about him, but he just did
everything. He just did everything well. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
he was like a prick, and I enjoyed it.
Kind of like Roman Josi today. Like you just do everything well. You put. I mean, Josi, I guess, is more high impact offensively. I don't. What's another comparison we have today? Pietrangelo. Yeah. There you go. Like Doughty. Everybody likes Pietrangelo, right? Yeah. Doughty's big though. Doughty's a big boy. I guess
Keith is big too, though.
Yeah,
Keith can throw him around.
He was 6'1". Doughty's like, isn't Doughty big? Oh, maybe Doughty's only 6'2". I thought he was bigger than that, but actually, you're right. I might be wrong. I always just saw Doughty as a big boy because he was drafted literally overweight. That was like the whole conversation about it.
He's 6'1".
Okay, all right, so same size. Yeah. He was just a big guy, like not Bufflin size, but he was a bigger guy.
Right.
I love both those defensemen.
Me too. And that's the thing, like, for a guy like Bonk, who again, late first round type of guy.
You don't know what his ceiling is.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, we have a lot of question marks around where we are right now, especially with our prospects. Our prospect pool has been ranked 9th, 11th. I've seen it all over the place. Last year, I think it was 14th. It's obviously had to have jumped just because of Mitch Cobb alone outside of everybody else. So, I mean, I think there's things to be excited about. I can't stand this whole like negative, mentality that's like, oh my God, like all this team's going to do is stink. And
for the next 5 years.
Yeah, we're going to suck for, 5-6 years and we're just going to be the worst team in the league. It's like, no, like,
it's possible. It's possible that we're bad for the next 5-6 years if things go wrong.
Right. If we have another Chuck Fletcher incident again, but I can't see that happening. Like the chances of that happening twice to one franchise is actually like the odds of that.
Put the Kate Smith statue up. Get us out of this. Put the statue up. You need to. We're cursed.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, I look at us right now as
Things have to
every
balance out eventually.
right. Mhm.
Can't continue the same path.
Exactly. And like, how many more years are we not going to have Coots be healthy?
Dude, I even talked about how, yeah, I hear you. I even talked about how, like, Michkov this past year might have had one of the worst years of his life. People don't realize that, right? Like, nobody really thinks about that. But I mean, his father was found dead. He
Yeah.
wasn't allowed to play competitively again, on the big stage. The guy's been working his whole life for that. He's got a big ego, just like Connor Bedard, just like all these guys. They want to be on the big stage. They're top level athletes. Wasn't even allowed to do that. His misfortune led with the Flyers' lack of fortune this past year led to something good.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, and
Play the long game. That's what I'm saying.
right. I have no problem with waiting for this kid. None.
Yeah.
I have no problem with waiting for any of this.
I
I
still
know
think
everybody
he's
sounds like people probably think I'm nuts. It's like, what do you want to wait for? It's like, I want to win. And I'm
well,
like, I get it.
In fairness, you're 20. You look at time differently. For you, 3 years, not that much. If you're 54 and you've been watching the Flyers all these years and you're like, I gotta wait 3 more fucking years. I start getting it as I get older. You're like, 3 more years, really? Like, I don't even know where the hell I'm gonna be in 3 years. It's like that type of thing.
No, I get that.
But I also think that people need to take that number with a grain of salt because we don't know what's going to happen with Michkov. Exactly. We know. I am certain the Flyers will try to get him out of there. I'm certain of that.
They'll probably pay the millions. Millions.
I don't know if they're allowed to. We'll see what the rules are, what happens with Russia. But if there's an opportunity to get him out, I can't see them.
Convince me that you just can't convince me that they didn't pay for that meeting over the summer. The meeting to get him the Voorhees. There's no way they didn't pay for that.
What do you mean, pay for the flight and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. But there's nothing
wrong with that. $2 million just for him to come.
No. I don't think so. I don't think they paid him. I think they did pay for his stay and all that stuff.
Right,
yeah, for sure. And his flight over, I would imagine they paid for all of that, but that's not a big deal. I mean, more they have to buy out this contract, right? So you can't just buy out the contract. You have to incentivize them to break it early. So either you have to pay off probably the remainder of the contract plus sweeten the deal. Yeah. And I have heard that that he can't, that they're legally, that he has to pay for it himself. But all I'll say is I don't think Russia cares at all. They just would want money. So if the Flyers have a way of buying out that contract, I think things can be worked out. Yeah. Again, I don't know.
I don't think this is going to be.
But I think they're going to try. That's all I'm saying. I think they're going to try.
For sure. And again, I think everybody in this entire thing has seen how much of a improvement this has helped our franchise. Not even just on paper, right? And you're looking at our, our cap and, where we're going to be on the ice, but the fan base is like ecstatic over this kid. And part of it, I think, is because, again, we haven't had a guy like this before. Anytime you heard, well, could we get Michkov? It's like, nah, no way. And everybody's just threw it aside like it was nothing. And it was like, there's no way we'll be that
because
lucky.
we were experiencing so much bad luck.
Right.
You anticipate it'll go wrong again. Right? We didn't win the lottery draft. We're going to get the typical player we always get. And we're going to be mildly excited.
Like 11 and get nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll trade back and then pick up another player that maybe falls short. Just like when Toronto traded with the Flyers to move back in the draft to take Jeremy Bracco instead of Travis Konechny. I'm sure that they are kicking themselves over that one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing.
Same player.
Yeah. It's like the stupidest thing, man. But yeah, no, I mean, look, I just look at where we are. It's like, there's a lot to look forward to with this. And I think the biggest thing for me is just, it's not just like and this isn't like a disrespect thing to any other player that we've drafted, but it's like we don't have a guy that's like, he could be this or he could be that. Obviously, we know Michkov can be something, and obviously, things could go wrong with that. I don't think so, but you can't rule out the possibility. The other part of it is just, everybody's just so excited, man. It's like, we got Gauthier last year, and that felt pretty good, and then you get Michkov on top of it. It's like, we're gonna be pretty good in a couple. Yeah, we're gonna be pretty good in a couple of years.
It shows hope.
Yes, exactly.
Dangling hope like a carrot at the end of the stick.
Right, and it's like every loss now. It's like, that sucks. We have Michkov. Well, that's how I'm.
because you see a potential end to it. Like everybody knows that if the Flyers bottom out this year, they take another high pick, and you come in with 3 high picks like that, right? I'm talking about
potentially
just the
2.
yeah,
Oh, our pick, you're saying.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
okay.
hopefully Florida doesn't fall too far, otherwise we pick the following year.
Right.
So with our pick, like if we pick again, if we even drop to 3, if
How
we win
far
the
does Florida
lottery,
have to fall for us to not get it?
top 10. It's top 10
Top
protected.
10, okay.
I believe either top 10 or top 15.
I think it's top 10. I think it's 10.
It's
So, but the best we could get is 1-11.
Right.
That's great. And honestly, you could get 11 to move up.
But I don't anticipate them to be. I think realistically it'll be in the 20s pick. Well, probably similar to what we had this past year, right? Like
without trading for it.
Yeah, mid 20s pick, and
I love if we could get top 4 and anywhere from like 15 to 18, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
That would be great. But
well, again,
I don't know where Florida is going to fall. We
also don't know what this draft is going to shape up to. Like we know about the 3 big guys at the top, but we might need
if we get Celebrini.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. What's his name? What's the other one? Iserman is another one. There's Celebrini, Iserman.
He's coming back into the draft.
It's spelled differently. It's spelled with an E. It's the American Iserman. Yeah, Celebrini, and then who's the other guy? Dodonov, right? The Russian.
Sorry.
So there are definitely players available, but we might need a number 1 defenseman. And from what I understand, this will be a much stronger draft defensively. So even if we don't take in the top 3, all right, well, at least we get what we need, which is a potential number 1 defenseman, maybe if we just draft around that top 7 range again. So all I'm saying is that, we just got to give it time. We really have to give it time
and time's
to play
on our
out
side.
before. Yeah. Well, right now it is,
Yeah.
This year is a grace year. And we really do have it this year, but you really only have 1. After this, the pressure does go up.
Because I think the other question is people need to realize is like everybody's been screaming for a rebuild. It's like, how long can you really stomach a rebuild as a fan?
But I just don't think people really know what a rebuild is, dude.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, but take that question out of the conversation. Like, how long can people actually watch this team like purposely be bad? I'm not saying we're purposely being bad, but you know what I mean.
Especially compiling the years prior of mediocrity.
That's like 6. That's like at least this is a 2 to 3 year thing. This is like 6. This is probably like around 6 years if you're including, these past couple of years from 21.
Yeah,
the COVID year up until now. That this has been year 3 of this.
Yeah,
and now we're finally starting to admit it, and we should have probably 2 years ago. So.
Well, when you look I think it's now, easier said than done. The injuries played. We can do that, but nobody knew the injuries were coming to that level. I just think that Chuck Fletcher didn't make good moves to resolve them.
No, he was an idiot. I mean,
the moves that he made weren't the moves that he made just weren't good. The players that he invested
they were stupid.
They weren't good enough to invest in. They weren't going to be the level of player that was going to resolve the issues you needed.
Right.
Only really Ryan Ellis and Niskanen were players that could make a real large impact on your team and change the culture. I think he was hoping
he
Kevin
had some
Hayes would be that guy,
ones
but he wasn't.
He had some smaller ones that helped, like Broussard before he got injured. That was fine.
Not all of his moves were bad. I mean, even Pitlick was good here.
Pitlick was a great,
yeah.
And
he did trade for Ryan Hartman, which was actually a really good trade, but then he didn't re-sign Hartman.
Yeah, he gave up on him and got him for Pitlick. So
and gave up on him too.
Yeah. They didn't resign, which that honestly stunk losing Pitlick. That was, and if you think about it,
because he was likable.
Well, it wasn't that. It was just they just assumed I just hated how they assumed that like every rookie could just come in and do.
I think they were fine. Well, this is what I was
Myers. They did it all.
Well, this is what I was talking to Jim about. Because I was talking about the whole concept of it being a young man's league, and I was like, it's not a young man's league. I was like, it's a salary cap league. The young men are not in an advantage in the NHL. Like it depends on what you consider young, but nobody will tell you that a 27, 28-year-old guy is young. Those are the guys who have the advantage in the NHL. Yeah. Those are your best players in the league.
Right. Typically. And everybody looks at it, it's like, oh my God, this guy only has a couple years left. Because it's like once you hit 30, it's like, oh, you're terrible.
Right. But it doesn't work that way because young men are forced in the NHL earlier because of salary cap reasons. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, teams would keep players. Like things would be locked up.
You ever think about like like 10 years ago, how many guys were still playing the league at like 40 years old? Like
Yeah,
2012,
there was
2013.
more of that, and it's because the teams could afford to keep them. Now they
Right.
can't.
Hmm.
So the players, they leave early and they leave to other leagues
Right.
where they're pretty good players still, but they go and play
Yeah.
KHL, the SHL, and be a top player there,
Right.
right? Where they probably should be a bottom six forward in the NHL or bottom pairing defenseman or
Mhm.
whatever. That just doesn't happen as much anymore. They
Right.
guys like Nick Seeler are disappearing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those
Right.
spots are being taken by kids. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a salary cap thing. It's not a. I do agree. There's more young, talented players than ever.
Yeah.
Like there are more elite young players than I do remember.
Yeah. Like kids that are going to be like legit superstars.
I mean, dude, I don't remember a time period where not only did you have Crosby still playing in the league, and you had McDavid and all the superstar levels around them, but now you have Connor Bedard coming in immediately. It's like you have three generations in the league at the same time. Like I don't recall a lot of that throughout history. You know what I mean? Like that's pretty rare. Like we didn't have that all the time. So like when Crosby and Ovechkin came in the league, there wasn't a Crosby or Ovechkin in the league at the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Who were even the best players in the league at that time? Yager still?
Yeah, it would have been like Yager,
Datsuk.
Reiki, Datsuk. There was
Brett
Zetterberg. Brett Hull would have been at the end there, a little bit the Chuck. Yeah, I mean there would definitely still been like top players, elite players. Right. Steven Stamkos came in like shortly after, but like really for the most part, it wasn't generational. Hey, this guy's going to change the league, and we have three of them playing at the same time right now. So I think that's an indication of a lot of talent.
Right. And especially too, because like there's going to be a lot of good games this year, just on the side of, just talent against talent, and not even just like kind of like what we were talking about earlier with the defense, like teams that might not have, not many teams have like a number one defenseman, and then there's teams that have a few. Like Boston and Seattle are two teams that come to mind to me. Like Boston has probably two number one defensemen, McAvoy and Lindholm. And Seattle has like a big, really good group of defensemen.
Lindholm is a number one defenseman like Provorov is, in my opinion. I think he's a top pair.
And I think McAvoy is just up there, like just like Adam Fox.
Yeah,
like
he is right now. Yeah, off of his
and that's the thing. It's like they have two. They have a pretty good D, and Seattle has just like a good group of guys. Well, at least on paper now. They added Dumoulin, they lost Susie, but they still have a good group of players.
They win by committee, which I think is what the Flyers are going to be focused on doing.
And I'm perfectly fine with that because we have the offense to do it.
Well, you have to compensate.
Yes,
you have to compensate for your weaknesses, right?
And the difference between
until you eliminate them,
right? And the difference between us and Seattle right now is they have Beniers and we don't. We'll have it with Gauthier and Mitch Cobb and everybody else, but they have that young guy that's like legit going to be a star. We don't have that at the moment. Mm-hmm. We obviously have guys like Tippett and Frost that can be very good players. It doesn't mean they're going to stink.
They have
that's the difference.
But they have good veterans peppered that they were able to hand pick, and we got rid of our veterans.
Exactly.
It depends on Coots and Atkinson, to your point.
Right. Exactly.
If they're healthy and they're ready to go, everything changes.
I don't think our offense is going to be that bad. I really don't.
With them, but without them, you could look at it again and be like, okay, they'll
still be better though if they don't have them because Farabee will be healthy.
But they lack leadership, and there's a lot of question marks.
I don't know if they lack leadership
on offense.
I don't really know. Well, we don't really know that. Well, I mean,
they lack veteran leadership. They really would only have Scott Lawton,
Hathaway, Delorier. Do you need much more than that?
I mean, considering two of your three leaders are bottom line players in the NHL, and the other one is
I don't really know if that matters though.
It does.
Even if Atkinson's healthy and he still doesn't have Coots?
Yeah, I think it does. I think Coots is the X factor. I think the team goes where Coots goes.
Yeah.
I really do believe that. I think people highly underestimate him, and I think we saw that
because people make it like that he's just nothing now.
Yeah,
like that's all the conversation's been.
He's just the top six forward.
And Yeah.
He's just the
I'm
top
like,
six
what?
forward.
I'm like,
Maybe
what
they
are
should
you
start him
talking
on the
about?
third line. Yeah, I hear all
Yeah.
this stuff. I'm like, I'm telling you, if
Like,
he's healthy, there is no coach in the world that's playing him on the third line in this lineup.
no. Torts would have to do like
You'd have to
a
go to
lot of drugs for him
you
to
have to go
play
to
on the third
he'd
line.
have to be going to Tampa Bay to play on the third line coming back from an injury. And
I
even
don't even
there,
think he would play on the third line in Tampa Bay. He'd probably
that's
be a second line center.
that's what I'm saying. He's not
He won a Selke. It's not like
yeah,
he's just bad now.
yeah.
Like,
He's a
I get
point
it,
per game
he's
Selkie
injured.
winner. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, look, David Krejci went over and played in Czech for maybe 2 or 3 years and came back and put up like 60 points. Do we think Couturier is just going to come in and just suck?
Well,
like,
look, I understand the fear behind the back issue.
I
But
get it, but
again,
that doesn't
if
mean
he's
that.
healthy, doesn't mean his game is shit.
Right.
He just has to prove he's healthy. That's
right.
That's what it is.
You don't
is
think a guy
health,
like him is itching to play?
Yeah. Dude,
like,
even Peter Forsberg playing with his bummed foot was a point per game player. And he was like, I'm retiring.
He couldn't even find a skate.
Yeah. And he was a point. Again, that's a all-time great. But still, it's like that guy couldn't skate and was still putting up point per game in the league. I'm just saying that even Couturier at 70% is still number one center on this team.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Even the year that you knew he was hurt and he was still playing, he was still our number one center.
Yes.
Even when they had Drew
and I believe he was
still
a point per game.
Yeah, that like 29-ish games.
Yeah.
Because there's this whole thing that like he's always hurt and he's always this and he's always like, what are you talking about?
Recently, he used to
recently, yes. He missed before, I think it was going into last season. I did the math. He played 305 out of a possible, I think, 371 games, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And it was like 360, 370-ish, wherever the number is. That's like, what, 60 games?
Yeah.
Ish. That's not bad. And that's over what? From 20, that's almost 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of games.
He wasn't known for injuries until the back.
No.
That's
right.
For sure.
And the only injury he really had, the main one, was the ACL in the playoffs and the MCL.
Yeah.
But outside of that. And still put up like crazy. 8 points.
Yeah.
In 6 games and a hat trick. And we almost won the series.
So that's a sign of a star player. That if he can play through an injury and still excel at that level, that's not normal.
He's
good. That's not top 6 forward good. That's star level good. Mm-hmm. A guy who can carry a team on his back injured.
Yes. He's the next Bergeron if he can stay healthy. Yeah. He's the next older type of veteran.
The health is serious. The back injury is serious. I do not deny that. And if he's not good, it could hinder his career. The risk is there. Yeah. That I definitely see.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into this video and we'll end with our roster conversation. So the NHL network NHL.com just released the Flyers season preview, and I was watching it, and just one thing stuck out. And the girl, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, in it, she made a comment, and they were talking about Carter Hart. Like, I didn't hate the video or whatever, but they were talking about Carter Hart, and she was like, oh, Carter Hart needs to rebound. And we were talking about this prior, obviously. And I'm just like, are you paying attention? Look, I get the Hockey Canada thing. I do. Okay. But they're just making shit up about this guy at this point. If you've been listening to me from the very beginning, I've been talking about how the media chases players out of cities. They're toxic. This is an example of it. There is not a single person around this team who will say that Carter Hart needs to rebound. Not a single one who watched this guy. No one. You can say, oh, he needs to stay healthy. You can say, oh, he needs to get this Team Canada thing behind him. Fine, deal. Mm-hmm. But he was, until he got injured, like the MVP of the team outside of TK. It was him and Travis Konechny. It was clear cut that he was playing at an all, especially in the beginning of the year.
Saying that Hart needs a rebound is like saying Konechny was bad last year.
And not only that, they were saying in the video that Torts, with the players, Torts, I was like, Torts, never gave him the nod. I was like, actually, he did several times during the year. He said Carter Hart was our number one goalie. So, for the love of God, as the NHL.com, do like a little bit of research prior to doing this. The whole thing wasn't inaccurate. It wasn't all bad. But if you're going to talk about this player, who's obviously important and there's a lot of eyes on him, do the research.
Yeah.
Don't read his numbers and say, can he rebound?
That's all that
He
was.
is. He is already a top
Yeah.
goalie in the league. I don't care what people want to tell you otherwise. The numbers are irrelevant. The fact that there were trade rumors all about him everywhere weren't by accident. People know what he is. The Flyers know what he is. And even when Ersan and Sandstrom played well, when Hart was ready, he took the net right back. That should tell you how they view him.
Yeah.
So this whole idea that does he need to... No, he doesn't. He needs to come in and play his game and get whatever controversy is here behind him. And if that's not the case, and he can't because of legal reasons, and I will repeat that, legal, then we'll have to deal with that. But it's not a rebound in his game. Right. And that just annoyed the shit out of me.
It's No, I get it. I mean, look, I don't know if there's anything else I can add to it. It's just, if you watched any game last year, Hart played on his head. I mean, how many games did we win because of Hart? I can pick 3 or 4 off the top of my head. Like,
he's the reason we didn't finish in the bottom 3.
Yes. Yes.
And Ersan.
And the fact, right. It was the fact that
also played very well.
Yeah. And the biggest thing was, we got peppered every night. Hart was there making 35, 40 saves pretty much every other night. And we would barely score. In some games we would win and come back. And, we tended to beat up on the teams that were around the same kind of area as us, teams like Columbus and, stuff like that. But the games that we actually played against teams like Jersey and the Rangers, and there's at least 2 or 3 games off the top of my head, at least against the Devils. And it's funny because I know everybody's going to say this whenever, and I know this topic, but whenever we get to the outdoor game, everybody's just gonna be like, oh my God, why are we even playing in this? It's gonna feel like Tahoe again, just without the injuries. It's gonna be like we're just gonna get shit kicked and everything else. I'm like, and everybody's like, oh well, the Devils are so good. I'm like, you people do realize that last year against the Devils, we blew them out in one game, they blew us out in another, and the other 2 games were 2 tight wins from both teams. We split the series. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And that's the hard thing. Hart had at least 2-3 games against them last year, New Jersey specifically, where he was fantastic.
There were 90% of the games he played, he was fantastic.
Yes. Like early on in the season against Vancouver, stole that one. We went down early. Like, and I could go on and on about this. But the fact of the matter is that it's not like he's a bad goalie. It's not like we, are.
His play is not in question.
No, it's we are so shit defensively and cannot score goals that his numbers are bad. That is the total answer. All you have to look at is our goals for versus our goals against, and you'll know why Hart's numbers are shit.
Yeah, because we're always chasing games late.
Yes,
and to give up
games late,
more opportunities against.
We were 0-14-1 last year after 2 periods, down by at least 2 goals.
Yeah,
and that's 15 games in a season where you're down after 2 periods. Down 2 goals. So There you go. There's your answer. Yeah. It's not that Hart is bad or, can't make saves or whatnot. This isn't like talking about Hart from like a couple years ago when like he was getting picked glove side every game. This is totally different. He has no other issue like that anymore.
Yeah.
He's fine. He's a good goaltender. He's a great goalie, really. If you put him in the right system, he's fantastic.
Yes.
And any number he's going to get contract-wise, again, if he stays here, excluding all of the Hockey Canada thing, it's just talking about the player itself, he's going to get a Sorokin deal. It's going to be probably the same thing if he stays. And, if he wants to play through a rebuild. That's the other thing, is does he want to play through a rebuild? But I do agree. I do think a lot of it is just the fact that there is no, actual question. And there is no I think the best way for me to put it is anyone, like you said, anyone who really watched this team.
Concerns for the on ice.
Right. It's not the on ice production. That's the problem. It's the team defense and we can't score. So there's that. And also the penalty kill. I mean, he's been our best penalty killer.
I love that the Flyers have such good goaltending depth now that teams don't even the league doesn't know what to do with it. They're like, quick, trade him away. You guys are supposed to have bad goalies. What the hell is going on here? Like, you can't have Hart and Ersan and Sandstrom and Pedersen and Kolosov and Fedotov. You're not allowed to. You got to get rid of the best one at least.
And even our fans say that too.
I know.
that we
I'm
just have
getting.
all these goalies that are just like, oh
I know.
well,
What do we
what are
possibly
we gonna
do?
do?
What do we do with good
What?
goaltending? What do we?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
like we only haven't been searching for a goalie for I don't know
I'm.
5,
I'm
10,
sure that's what the
15,
Nashville
30
Predators.
years.
Well, when the Nashville Predators found all those good defensemen, they went like, "Oh my God, what do we do? How do we get rid of Shea Weber? How do we get rid of Ryan Suter as soon as possible? Roman Yossi, oh, he didn't
Ekholm.
break out. How do we get rid of him as fast as possible?"
Yeah.
Yeah, they literally traded all those guys in their 30s to let them go. But whatever. All right. Let's move on to the last topic. So one thing I did like about the video is that they predicted the Flyers roster. I'm sorry, not roster, the opening night like lines. And I'm going to share my screen. This is me recreating what they pushed on television. And we'll talk about it and we'll see like if we have any differences. I added the special teams portion, but
Okay.
so what they had was Scott Lawton, top line left wing, with Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny on the right. Then they had Farabee, Frost, and Tippett. Obviously, a line we saw a lot of last year. I think these make sense, actually. They weren't my lines, but they do make sense. Cam Atkinson, Noah Cates, and Tyson Forrester is the third line. Nicholas Delorier, Ryan Poehling, Garrett Hathaway is the fourth. Then they have oh, this is not right. I'm sorry. I did my defense. That's not what they had. They had this, which I thought was kind of weird, but this is what they
On
had.
the first pair.
Yeah, so they had Cam York and Mark Stahl playing the right side. They had Travis Sanheim, Ristolainen on the second pairing, and Nick Seeler and Sean Walker on the third. And then the goalies I filled in, they didn't have that, but let's just we don't really know. I think that one needs to be solved in camp. But I do suspect that Ersson will start in the minors just because of contract stuff, but we'll see. So just looking at the offense, I like what they did. I could totally see Scott Lawton, playing with Couturier and TK. I could totally see them putting that, trying that line of Farabee, Frost, and Tippett. I think it could be a good line potentially too, like a kid's line, right? They're all about the same age. And then Cam Atkinson, Noah Cates, and Tyson Forrester. It's a good looking line. Assuming the health there, but I just like it.
I don't know if I like the two shooters, but I think it can work.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, but you'll have two shooters on the line no matter what, I think.
True, yeah, but fair, I guess.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, you have Farabee and Tippett, so I guess it works out.
Yeah. So, what I did differently, myself is that, right, we talked about this earlier. Like, if we look at Torts, right, this is how he's going to see it coming out of camp.
That's how it's going to be out of camp.
Most likely, right? That Frost will be the third line center.
Mm-hmm.
I think Joel Farabee will get the try at top line left wing, but I absolutely could see Scott Lawton potentially playing on the top line. He did this past year, and I think he actually would do a good job there, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I think that one is a potential. That one might happen. And we know Torts loves him. But what I had was Cam Atkinson on the second line, which, again, not that different. And then I had them playing with Tippett. And then I had Forrester with Frost and Lawton potentially. Now, I like their lineup. That's what I'm saying. I look at that. I also thought, I was like, why does Nicholas Delorier have to start on the team? I was like, why can't Garrett Hathaway? I mean, there's a chance that Wade Allison beats them in camp. I mean, he's not a bad player. He's actually a really good prospect. He just had injury issues. Right. So I thought maybe this could be a look that we were looking at. But there could be other changes here. I even thought that maybe Tippett would play the left side. But just going off of last year, this is kind of what I had. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think for Delorier, I think in that case, since this is what I'm looking at, like, it's hard for me to not envision a roster with him on it because Torts likes him so much.
Yeah.
I think I'm fine with the centers that way. I'm fine with the centers as Frost is 2C. Everybody knows how much I enjoy Frost, so I'm fine with really whatever. I guess I'd like him to play more. I still would like to see him at wing, Frost, and actually get a long extended look at it.
Who would you put at center instead? Lawton?
Yeah, I would try Lawton.
So then you put Frost with Couturier and TK?
I would have Frost with Cates and Tippett again and try that out again. Okay. Because they haven't done that. I'm fine with Forrester on the third line. I have no problem with that. I wouldn't. It's hard for me to say which right winger is probably going to play on the left side. I think TK can do it. Everybody makes like he can't. He can. Atkinson, I think,
That's a good point.
obviously can do it. I think TK on left wing would be fine because
That's a
you look at
great
it.
point. That might happen. You're right. Could be
Yeah,
TK on the left side.
because I look at TK and I'm like, you know what he is. He knows what he is. He knows his role. Like, I have no issue with doing that. And honestly, I would switch. I would put Cam down to the third line, and I would put Tippett to the second line. I put Forrester with TK and Couturier.
I think
That would
I think that's definitely possible, dude.
I
Hundred
would like
percent what
that a
you're saying.
lot.
100%. I think this is possible that far. And I
Yeah,
actually brought it up in previous episodes that Forrester could play with Couturier because of his style of
yes,
game.
and I think the biggest thing with Coots is you put a guy like that with the shooter, and honestly, it reminds me a little bit of when he was with Lindblom, when they had Lindblom with Coots and TK. If you switch Lawton with Frost, I'm fine with that too. And then
You could also do this, which has, we know
yeah,
Farabee and Atkinson have played
Frost
well
Tippett.
together.
Yes, and I think Lawton's done a better job, and not even that he was. And I don't mean to say that like he was doing a bad thing, just that he's done good with, playing with the younger guys and kind of using his skill too. I mean, as a former first round pick, so you could put Lawton really anywhere. He can play wing, he can play bottom six, top six, whatever,
Well,
and he could be effective. So,
but
go ahead, yeah,
no, I totally agree with you. The only thing I want to point out is we have to remember roles, right? Like, so I was saying the middle six is
right,
interchangeable because they were both going to get, like, Morgan Frost will probably be favored in the offensive zone and Noah Cates will probably be favored in the defensive zone, right? Because he will probably be playing that more defensive role. And if
right.
you think about the player you want to put him with, maybe Cam Atkinson or Scott Lawton, you probably don't want to do both. And that's why I like this mix, right? I like these lines too, actually.
I do too.
I think these could definitely work. Again, our guesses could be way off, but I
Right.
just want to go through the variables. I think this is a really interesting one. I love the idea of Tyson Forrester being able to fill in on the top line. And then that allows you,
It's more flexibility.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
then you
all
look at
three
it that
lines are scoring lines, regardless
right,
of what you do. But
right, exactly.
it's
And
the
the
right mix
and
of veteran and young everywhere.
right, and even if you throw, Delorier back in, and if you have him with Paling and Hathaway, then you can still have that. I think the one thing too is, can Legzinski battle Paling for a spot?
He
That's the
will.
other thing.
I
I
think he
think
will more than people realize.
yeah, it's the same thing with your argument of, can Allison kind of beat out Hathaway Delorier type thing. Defensively, it's rough. Like, I'm not a fan of Stahl in the first pair. I think that I have the feeling that the Stahl thing.
Well, I think it's obvious that it's going to be probably this to start the year.
Probably. I would rather be York and Risto and Sanheim and Stahl, and then see where Walker's fine.
I think that's absolutely. I think it could be this, and then Stahl anchors the third pairing with Zamula. Actually, I think it'll be closer to this, something like that.
Could be. It depends on Zamula too, because he's coming off the injury, so there's a lot to kind of go in with that too. And that's the thing. It's like the injuries and everything else, and then you.
But you know why they put Stahl with York though, right? Like, because Stahl,
the vet with the younger guy.
It's not just a vet. He's one of the only vets on this team with pedigree, right? The other two are injured, like we were talking about earlier. Like,
played a lot of hockey,
right? It's like Scott Lawton, kind of,
Right.
So you hope that maybe, by putting Mark Stahl with Cam York, he can learn from him more. They'll interact more. When you're pairing, you communicate a lot more. So maybe that is, that was the NHL Network's thought, or the NHL.com's thought.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like, I have no problem with really any of it, because again, the D's going to change all year because we're going to be losing a lot, and they're going to try to find different things so we can win. And that's what Torts usually does, is he'll just continuously kind of change things. Again, Frost alone played on 38 different line combinations. We also had injuries. So, that's taking out everybody else. And there's a lot of different lines that kind of were going throughout the year, stuff like that too. So it'll be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of questions, obviously. I don't know if they'll try Farabee at center again. I don't think so. I think they'll probably keep him at wing. I know they did it for a
With the
little.
depth right now, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I don't think we need to. Um, but you never know.
They,
I mean,
they
again,
might
injuries and everything
possibly.
else, they could, but we'll see. It'll be interesting. Why is Frost at 2.5?
Oh,
Did Everett
I
move it?
added it just
Oh, you did
randomly.
that? Okay.
Yeah, just because he's
Yeah, I
not
was
on the
curious.
roster
I was
for
like,
the
did he sign when we were doing this? Like, I
no,
was just
no.
like,
I just throw in a random number that I think it's a guess of what it would be.
oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean that's fair too. And again, same thing with the goalies. I mean, Urson could probably be back up. I wouldn't shock me if it's Peterson. Honestly, and nobody's gonna say this, and I'm probably gonna get stuff for this, but it could be Sandstrom if he outplays all of them because he has NHL experience. It doesn't mean that he can't, but there's just a lot of questions to
Well,
be asked. And
he's not. Well, my whole thing is he is not waiver exempt, and
right,
Peterson is essentially waiver exempt because of his contract.
exactly,
So they have flexibility. Or I'm sorry, Peterson has flexibility. Ersan has flexibility. Hart and Sandstrom do not. So I think that if they're even, Sandstrom and Peterson, I think there is a chance Peterson goes down to the minors to start the year because you can
right,
do that, right? And
right,
if you do that with Sandstrom, not that he will definitely get taken, but there is a risk of him getting taken for nothing, I would assume. But there are times to do that during the year. I don't think if Peterson is better, that they'll be like, oh, well, we don't want to lose Sandstrom. They'll be like, no, we're going to give Peterson the real try because we
yeah,
want to up his value too, right? So I'm not sure exactly, but I think Ersan will be the second best goalie at camp, though.
yeah. No, for sure. I think Urson's gonna have a strong camp. I mean, from everything that's kind of going right for him, and also two, you just have to kind of factor in the fact that he's probably had some confidence from signing that deal too, and all that type of stuff. So I think there's a lot of reasons for kind of this stuff to kind of be happening, and I'm fine with this roster. Again, I like the offense. A little skeptical on the D. I've talked about that on my show too, and me and Mike
Everybody's
Canoodle.
skeptical. Yeah, everybody's
Yeah,
skeptical.
me and Mike have kind of talked about that a lot, just on how the D looks a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's going to change throughout the year too, so we'll see.
Cool. So let's finish up here with the special team. So I just threw this together on my own. And we talked about this before, but this is how I potentially see the power plays kind of playing out just based off roles, right? If you look at power play 1 and 2, they're actually all the players in the roles. I think it's kind of obvious, like with Tippett, Couturier, Frost, right? You get Tippett for the big time one timer. Frost can run the power play if Couturier owned the slot around the net. You have TK, another right hand shot on the point, and also able to set up along the half wall. And then Cam York, running the point. And then
Right,
if you look at the power play too, it'd be structured the same way, right? Big shot from Forrester. You have Atkinson playing the TK role. You have Noah Cates playing the Sean Couturier role. Farabee playing the Frost role, and Sanheim playing York's role.
I love that you have Frost on the first power play.
He's the best playmaker.
Yeah, and I'm
I
fine with that
feel
too.
like it makes sense.
I love we have such weapons in the left flank. It's insane. Tippett and Forrester. Yeah, I know. I'm fine with this. I mean, there's a lot of different things. You could even switch Tippett with TK, and same thing with Forrester and Atkinson. You can switch them. There's a
Yeah,
lot of options for the one
I think
timer,
so.
which I like. Again, Coots in front of the net, I'm fine with. They don't have that, Van Riemsdyk type of guy in net front, but that doesn't mean Coots can't do it, or Cates can't do it either.
Could also
Um,
make plays from behind the net rather than in front of it, right?
yes, yes.
Which we don't do enough of.
I'd like to see York on the PK, at least the second unit.
The thing that sucks about this is that it shows 2 PK units and there are always 3 because all 3
Yes,
defensemen are rolled out. So I agree. And again, Noah Cates would also be part of the PK. So would Garrett Hathaway.
right.
Maybe Farabee, Ryan Paling would be involved, maybe Delorier.
Yeah, because
So
there's usually like 3 sets of forwards, and if a D gets caught, then they'll at least change
right,
half or something. That
right,
there's always
exactly.
a backup. It's like a backup unit type thing.
I don't know why they do just 2 penalty kill lines. They used to do that in NHL, and then they finally corrected that with
Yeah.
the last iteration. But it doesn't make any sense. There aren't 2 penalty
Mhm.
killing lines. There are 3.
Right.
So I think that could vary. Maybe they'll use the same defense. Maybe they'll stack there. But I agree with you 100%. York will be playing on the penalty kill. I just think he'll be used more on the power play than the penalty kill, but could be wrong. Like if they play him like a number one defenseman, the way we
they
play
should.
Prokhorov,
There's no one else that can do it.
well, Sanheim, they're still testing Sanheim, right?
I guess, but is Torts really going to do that?
I don't know. It's a good question. Maybe not.
And that's
to
the
your
thing.
Point,
It's
maybe not at all.
Right.
Maybe he'll treat him like a second pairing guy.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, NHL.com did.
Yeah. I think a lot of people. I don't think many people are happy with Sanheim at the moment.
I will say this though, it's up to Sanheim. He still has absolute opportunity to be the number one defenseman on this team.
He has more of an opportunity than he ever has now. And he's at a better age.
He's in his prime now. So if there's a time to do it, now is the time to do it. You're 27 years old. It's time, you know?
Yeah. And if not, then, see ya. Because how much of it can you really wait for him anymore?
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you. I don't think he would be that against being traded.
Right.
You just have to work a deal with him and it would take time.
Exactly. Especially if, we already know that there's been issues with the coach and everything else.
Right.
So it's
he won't want to be here either if he's not being played the way he wants.
Exactly.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Though I'll be honest with you, Chris, I don't want to see that happen. I want to see.
No, me neither. I want it to work. Yes.
Be the Sanheim we saw 2 years ago.
Another, first round pick that
we drafted and developed that's locked up, that is a good guy, that can skate. He's got size. Like the fact that he hasn't hit his ceiling sucks because he was on his way there.
Yeah.
As well as other players that stagnated. So
yeah. And that's the problem with the contract is Chuck never really waited to see what he would be with Torts, and it's unfortunate. I think the money is fine. It's the years. I mean, basically every contract he's gotten has been $2.5 million.
He gave him the UFA deal. He gave him what he would get in the UFA.
Yeah,
where you would think that we would have got something.
He should have got 5 years at 6.2.
Yeah. Or if he would, what did he get in the end? 8 years.
8
should have been eight at 5.5, or 6, or like you said, 5 at 6.
5 at 6.25. Yeah,
6.25. Yeah. It should have been either the dollar amount or the term. Yes. But again, I don't think Chuck Fletcher was.
Or if you added the other year and you did the first year as like a huge bonus type thing.
You know what I mean? You want to know why Frost is sitting and waiting? Because I don't think Danny Briere is going to be pushed around by any player.
Yeah.
And I don't expect any more of these
We're probably lowballing him, and he probably wants something like what Newhook got. That's my guess.
And he probably won't ever get it.
No.
Unfortunately.
It'll probably be another 1 year deal. That's how I look at Frost.
Yeah, I think Bill Meltzer's take on that is right. Is that he'll bet on himself for 1 year deal, maybe making $3 million even. But then we'll have to really, if he wants that long-term paid contract, he's got to show that the guy he was in the second half of this year is the guy that he always is, and I think every other team will treat him that way.
Yeah,
most other teams.
1x2 type thing.
Yeah,
like if you can get him at that, then
Yeah,
but we'll see.
We'll see. All right, that was a great episode, Chris. Where can people follow you? Any updates? Anything they should check out?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Maher. Instagram, same thing. My link tree's on there. It has all my stuff. Us at Maher Media, we launch on September 2nd. I can't wait. It's been literally since May 8th we've been working on this, and we just actually got our merch brand deal today with a different company, so we won't through Teespring. I'm kind of excited to announce that soon too. Nice. So we have a lot of stuff that we're kind of pumping out and trying to get content and everything else. But yeah, we launch on the 2nd, and that's when the site goes live. So we're like 11 days away, I think, is the math. I'm not a math guy, but that's probably close. So yeah, it'll be fun, man. I'm excited. Thanks for having me on. Always good talking with you. And it was good time.
Yeah, dude, you filled in perfectly for Vasili. So thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on. It was awesome. And again, thank you everybody for listening. Again, we see the support, the comments, everything. It's awesome. And I'll say thank you every episode. I don't care. It's been amazing.
Oh, I do that all the time too. So
yeah, it's awesome. It's humbling, dude. It's humbling.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like, there's people that work all day and then come home and listen to like me and you. Awesome. And then that's not me, making it like that we're schmucks, but
it's an honor. It's an honor that you take the time to listen to me.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And again, I get DMs and nice messages all the time. I haven't gotten anything negative at all. Like I don't get any negative messages. So you guys have been amazing. So thank you all so much. Again, we love you. And remember, always stay